Good morning, class 9 students. Today we are going to start a new chapter, and it is Iswaran the Storyteller, and it is written by R.K. Lakshman. So R.K. Lakshman, his complete name is Rashipuram Krishnaswamy Lakshman. He was born on 24 October 1921 and he died on 26 January 2015. He is commonly known as R.K. Lakshman. He is a versatile personality. He was an Indian cartoonist, illustrator, and humorist. He's best known for his creation, The Common Man, and for his daily cartoon strip. You must have seen, in the newspaper, right? Use and cartoon strip. You Said It in the Times of India, right? Which started in the year 1951. So that's that is all about R.K. Lakshman. In case you want to know more about him, you can find and you can discuss. We'll discuss in the live class that will fall on next Tuesday. So I think let's find out what this chapter is all about and the theme of the chapter. So Iswaran the Storyteller. Actually, this is a story about Mahindra, who is a junior supervisor, and his cook Iswaran, right? So we have two characters in the chapter. One is Mahindra, who happens to be a junior supervisor, and he has a cook. His name is Iswaran, right? And Mahindra, he has to move from one place to another because that is his job is, and now he has been ordered by his head office to move to a place. And so what is about Iswaran? Why the chapter says that Iswaran the storyteller? Because you will find that Iswaran, he has a great narrative. He the way he narrates a story, it's remarkable, right? And that is what we are going to find out, that what does Ishwaran has which nobody else has, right? How come he is able to portray a story in such a realistic manner? That is all we have in this chapter. So we are going to see that what is the speciality and what is so special about Iswaran that make him a good and remarkable storyteller. So I will be highlighting the text for you so that you could actually keep the track of the chapter. So I think we should start. Let's read. One night Mahindra woke up from his sleep and saw a dark cloudy form. He broke out into a cold sweat. Was it a ghost? So it is more like a teaser for you children. It is I think the one of the incident that happened with Mahindra. So we'll find about it, that when he woke up, right, he saw he saw a dark cloudy form, right? And obviously he must have thought it was a ghost, and he broke out into a cold sweat. He was so frightened. Let's find out what that incident was. So okay, so we have actually discussed, I have discussed the introduction of the chapter, but what is the theme and the title and the message of the chapter? Why do you guys have this chapter in your in your book, and what is it trying to teach you? Because the purpose is not just to narrate a story or have an entertaining story. The purpose is to leave children with a good learning and some lesson. So this this theme of the theme of the story is the art of storytelling. So you will actually see, because the art of storytelling, it will help you throughout your life. So you actually need to know that how a person can achieve this art of storytelling. So because good story because if you don't know the art of story, right, is if you don't know how to narrate it, so, and even if you try to narrate it to somebody or to your friend or to anybody in your school, outside, or among your colleagues, right? So they are not going to like it unless and until you know how to spice it up, right? So a good story becomes interesting only when the storyteller knows how to twist and spice up the narrative, right? And yes, it has to be surprising. Yes, and I think you will find all these qualities, in Mahind in sorry in Ishwaran, right? So let's find out. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man. The story was narrated to Ganesh by a young man, Mahendra by name. He was a junior supervisor in a firm which offered on hire supervisors at various types of construction sites, factories, bridges, dams, and so on. Mahendra's job was to keep an eye on the activities at the work site. He had to keep moving from place to place every now and then, as ordered by his head office, from a coal mining area to railway bridge construction site, from there after a few months to a chemical plant which was up somewhere. So what do we have in the first paragraph? So the paragraph introduced Mahindra, who is a supervisor, right? Who is a supervisor. So okay. Okay, so let's start. So Mahindra, who happens to be one of the characters of the chapter, he narrated this story about his cook Ishwaran to Ganesh. Ganesh is the third character whom Mahindra is narrating the story. So you will find hardly any mention of Ganesh in the story because Mahindra is narrating it to Ganesh. So you will find the mention of Mahindra and yes, Ishwaran, right? So because Mahindra, he worked as junior supervisor in a company, right? So as a junior supervisor, he has to visit various constructions companies on rent, like, and he also have to he also has to visit different places, right? So, and it is very frequent, and he is frequently posted at different sites like factories, bridges, and dams, right? Which are normally under constructions. So what was Mahindra's job? His job was to keep an eye on the progress, or the site where the work is being performed. So that is why you could actually that is why he had to change his place very often. And he also worked at various coal mine, right? And railway bridge construction site, and yes, the constructions of the chemical plant, I think, which was coming up somewhere. So this paragraph gave us the description about Mahendra, that what does he work as, I mean, where does he go, he has to move, and how many places has he worked, right? So this paragraph is devoted to Mahendra and his job profile. He was a bachelor, his needs were simple, and he was able to adjust himself to all kinds of odd conditions, whether it was an ill equipped circuit house or make a shift canvas tent in the middle of a stone quarry. But one asset he had was his cook Ishwaran. The cook was quite attached to Mahendra and followed him uncomplainingly wherever he was posted. He cooked for Mahendra, washed his clothes, and chatted away with his master. At night, he could weave out endless stories and anecdotes of varied subjects. So we have a few difficult word meanings in this chapter. Let's discuss. Query means it's a mine. Bachelor means a person who is unmarried, and anecdote means when you find an amusing story, or yes, a short amusing story, right? Suppose I'm narrating a story, and then there is in the same story there is a small, short, amusing story, right? So this could also be called anecdote. So Mahindra, we know now that Mahindra is unmarried and he does not have any family. That is why, you know, he can live, in temporary quarters, right? Because he has no family, so he does not find any difficulty in moving, and he can adjust to anything. He adjusted, he adjusted well in the circuit house, right? If it lacks basic facilities, and he can also live in tents, where yes, where you hardly find any facility, right? But he has got one advantage, and that is his cook, and his cook name is Ishwaran. Because Ishwaran is very close to Mahendra, he accompanies him everywhere, and the best thing about Ishwaran is he does not even complain. If the master moves, he also moves, right? And he does not only cook good food but also narrates good story. He was good at telling stories, and he actually knows how to entertain Mahendra, with his artistic skill of narrating story. I mean, with his, because he knows art of telling stories, right? And he tells stories on different subjects. Ishran also had an amazing capacity to produce vegetable and cooking ingredients seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of a desolate landscape with no shops visible for miles around it. I think this adds more feather to Ishwaran's cap, because Ishwaran, he does not, he is a narrator, he is a good storyteller, he is also a good cook, and on top of that, desolate means empty, right? And conjure up, it's not here, it's okay, this is here, conjure up, would miraculously conjure up the most delicious dish made with fresh vegetables within an hour of arriving the zinc sheet shelter at new workspace. So conjure up means to create with magic, right? And zinc sheet shelter means a temporary place to live. So you know he narrates good story, he makes good food, and on top of that, if you are if because if you have come to a new place, obviously you will not you will take time to find out the vegetable shops, grocery and all, right? But Ishwaran, he will never find any difficulty in finding vegetables and other ingredients in a new place in seconds, right? So yes, hats off to him that he is very good at arranging things as well, right? So and even the places which are uh, which are not inhabited, I mean the places where they live, sometimes they are isolated or remote area. Even in those areas, Ishwaran is able to produce the vegetables and ingredient where you will not find easily, right? And yes, and he can miraculously means you know uh, very surprisingly, I mean something when you don't expect, very unnaturally, right? So with magic, and he also makes good dish and good food. Mahendra Mahendra would be up early in the morning and leave for work after breakfast, carrying some prepared food with him. Meanwhile, Ishwaran would tidy up the shed, wash the clothes, and have a leisurely bath, pouring several buckets of water over his head, muttering a prayer. All the while, it would be lunchtime by then. After eating, he would read for a while before dozing off. Dozing off means to sleep. The book was usually some popular Tamil thriller running to hundreds of pages. Its imaginative descriptions and narrative flourish would hold Ishwaran in thrall. So, let's muttering means speaking in a low voice, dozing off, I have told, falling asleep, and narrative flourishes means detailed descriptions, and enthrall means the state of being in someone's power. So, what is Mahindra's schedule? He would wake up early in the morning, get ready, and he will leave for office, right? He leaves for work, for his office, and after eating his breakfast, and he would also carry his lunch along with him. And what meanwhile, what when in Mahindra's absence, what will Ishwaran do? He would clean the house, and he would wash Mahindra's clothes, and then he would take bath. And while taking bath, he would mutter, he would mutter, he would say prayers in low voice, and then he would eat his lunch. And he also loved to read his favorite book in Tamil language, right? And you will find that the very moment when he touches these book, when he starts reading these books, he will get carried away. He gets carried away, with the details, and the descriptions, and yes, the cover page, and the characters in the books, right, that he read. And then he would and then he would okay, his own descriptions were greatly influenced by Tamil authors that he read. And I think so now we know that how where did he develop, I mean, where did he learn the art of telling stories. I think he learned this art because he was greatly influenced by Tamil authors, right? Because he's also because uh, he's fond of reading Tamil thrillers. So this is where he developed this art. And uh, when he was narrating even the smallest of incidents, he would try to work in suspense and surprise ending into the account. For example, instead of saying that he had come across an uprooted tree on the highway, he would say, with eyebrows suitably arched and hands held out in dramatic gesture, "The road was deserted and I was all alone. Suddenly I spotted something that looked like an enormous means huge, bushy beast. Bushy means dense, beast lying sprawled across the road." Right? So I think in this paragraph you will find that why he is known as Ishwaran the storyteller, the great storyteller. And that is because his descriptions, because they were greatly influenced by the Tamil authors that he reads, right? Is influenced by the Tamil authors that he reads. So you will see that if you will ask him to describe even the smallest of incidents, so how will he do it? So uh, he will not narrate the smallest of incidents without using the suspense and surprise, right? So for example, the author has shared an example here, that suppose if he comes across an uprooted tree on the highway, so he won't say that I came across an uprooted tree or a broken tree. Rather, he would narrate this incident in a very manner full of suspense and surprise. For example, the road was deserted, I was all alone, and then I spotted something that looks like a very huge bushy beast, right? Like a very huge bushy beast. Understand? This is how he is creating the suspense, right? He came across a fallen tree, right? And you could also see him that whenever he narrates, he uses his facial expressions, because facial expressions, they also add meaning or a depth to the story that you're narrating, right? So he would use his expressions, he would use his bodily gestures to narrate it, right? So he would say that he was all alone, the road was empty, and that's how he creates suspense in reader's mind. And then suddenly what happened? He saw a huge beast lying across the road, right? I was half inclined and turned go back, but as I came closer, I saw that it was a fallen tree with its dry branches spread out. Mahendra would stretch himself back in his canvas chair and listens to Ishwaran's tales uncritically, right? And then he would tell that's how he end his suspense. That when he came across, all of a sudden he saw a huge beast was lying across the road. And then when he went ahead, you know uh, his mind was telling him not to go there because it could be dangerous. And the moment when he reached close, he saw that it was no beast, it was just a tree who had fallen. And you could actually see its bushy branches lying on the road, right? That's how he narrates the simple incident. So the branches of the tree, it actually spread out, and it did seem as if it was a huge beast, right? And for Mahendra it is very amusing, and he also adores and yes, he compliment him for his talent of narrating story in such an interesting and very captivating manner, right? So that's all for today's for today's session. We will be picking up the remaining part of the chapter in the next class. In case you have any question, you can approach me, and yes, we will also discuss the chapter in the live class. So make sure you have your queries so that you can discuss. Please complete your homework, do not skip it, and do watch the video from the beginning to the end. Thank you everyone, have a nice day.